out there. It's me, Brianna. And you're listening to Are We Caught Up Yet? Marvel Edition. Today, I am joined by my co-host and friend, as always, Sam. You are listening to episode 5. You can find us on youtube.com/SaveTheGameMedia and podcast services. And if you want to show us some extra love and get early access to all of our content and stuff, you can also find us on patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia. But that's all boring stuff, right? But before we get started, how are you today, Sam? What have you been watching?
I'm okay. I've been watching Xbox Crash and Burn. Ayo. I've been watching. That was a joke. The Redfall reviews have leaked. For those that care, that's why I made that joke. Don't come and don't hate me. I have been watching not a whole lot. Succession still, week to week. Loving that. Excellent show. Still recommend it. It is, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, just so expertly written.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the best written thing I've seen. With me, there are competitors. I'd say Ozark is incredibly well written. I would say Severance is very well written.
Oh, Severance is so good.
But yeah, I think just the snidiness and the humor and the a-holeness of every character in Succession is just impeccable. So I've been watching that. That's the only thing I've watched. But I will say, for those watching, because this is going to go up after the fact, that as of day of recording, in just under 2 days' time, I will be watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3 when it releases on the 3rd of May. Yeah, it releases on the 5th in the US. But yes, I will be watching that Wednesday, May 3rd. So thoroughly looking forward to that. You know, very appropriate considering we are talking about Marvel stuff on this here podcast. So yeah, seeing the latest installment, something that you will probably see in like 10 years time.
Oh my god, it better not take that long.
It's not going to take
Not
that long.
that I don't like podcasting with you, but we better catch up faster than that.
It's not going to take that long, don't worry.
Oh god.
Only 7 years or something. I think that's about
Oh my god, somebody do the math.
But that's all I've been watching, just those two things. Well, the one thing, I haven't seen Guardians 3 yet, but by the time you see this, I will have. I probably enjoyed it. I hope I did. Did I? Tell me.
You should give it a review right now.
I'm going to say, I'll preempt it. I'll say, I think I'll end up saying that it's my second favorite of the Guardians films. I would say it will rank pretty high, generally speaking, amongst all the other projects. Not necessarily top tier, S tier, but a solid A+. And I expect to cry. I'm going to say twice.
Okay.
I'm probably wrong.
One cry for hype factor, one cry for story.
No, I think they'll both be for story. This is, without spoilers, seemingly going to be a far more sort of poignant, somber affair. Because we'll get into it once we get to Guardians, but like the minutia is that the director James Gunn, who's done all 3 Guardians films, he is now leaving to be the head of DC, who does, DC is like the Batman, Superman stuff. He's being like the creative head over there, so he's not going to be doing any more Guardians. So Guardians 3 is technically like his farewell to the franchise. So I think he sort of tried to give it a real emotional edge. So I think that both of my predicted tearful moments will be from story beats, I think.
Have any of the like individual stories gotten more than 3 iterations?
Yes. Yes. Thor has had 4 films.
Oh.
He is the only one. I mean, obviously outside of like Avengers films, but
Yeah.
they aren't just one character.
Mhm. Okay.
There is. I'm not going to say. Actually, I'm not going to say that because that's technically loaded with a bit of a spoiler.
Okay.
But there, what I will say is that there will be additions to franchises that are currently only trilogies thus far. That just
Mhm.
haven't happened yet for one reason or another. But that is going to have to remain incredibly ambiguous until we get to a point where you'll understand what I mean without spoilers.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
How
Okay.
are you? What have you watched?
Um, I'm doing well. Um, Nothing too crazy. It's my day off before another crazy week. I've been doing training last week and then training. I think I'll be training this week and next. And then I also have a bunch of my content management projects going on, anyways. So lots of overtime. It's been not fun, but good money, I guess. In terms of what I've been watching, what have I been watching? I watched the first episode of Oshinoko again. I have not watched like the second and third episode. I do need to watch it, but I watched it again so that way I could watch it with my dad and his girlfriend, so that because they also were gonna watch the show now. So I watched that for a second time. It was just as intense the second time around and just as enthralling. Fantastic anime. It is the number one anime of all time on my anime list for a reason. I don't know how long it'll stay up there, but it is crazy that it's above Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So we'll see how long it stays. Oh, nope, just kidding. I just looked it up. It just dropped past it. It's number 2 right now by 0.02. So yeah, I watched that. I haven't been watching too much besides one show that's like redacted because I'm waiting to talk about it. So other than that, I think that's the only thing. Oh wait, and The Office for the millionth time though. Yeah. Any
Cool.
guesses? Oh wait, and Ted Lasso, which you should be watching, but if we
I'm not
start talking
going
about
to.
that, we'll get into another fight.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
I don't know why. I don't know why. It's
Because
driving me crazy.
I don't like it.
That's not possible.
Then I guess I don't exist.
Exactly.
No, I have legitimately no guesses
Good.
as to what this thing
That's
is that
good.
you're watching.
As long as you
Because
don't know, I'm happy.
like 75% of the stuff you talk about that you watch, it's gibberish to me. I have no idea. I'm sure it's excellent, but like the anime world is so over my head
I
for the
love
most part,
anime.
outside of a few exceptions. That
It's amazing.
I see it from afar and I admire it, but I'm like, I admire you, but you can stay over there. Thank you.
It's okay. It's honestly like so I've gotten actually several people into anime. Um One of them was completely on accident, but most of them have been on purpose. So I don't think you realize it yet, but you're already on the path to being into anime. Um so we'll see how long it
That
takes.
will likely be the hardest fight of your life.
I don't think so. It's
You're
really
doomed
not.
to fail.
That's what you think.
We'll
My
see.
favorite, this is totally tangential, but like anime related. One of my favorite things, so there's this anime called Assassination Classroom. I don't know if you've seen it.
Well, of
Um,
course there is. That's my favorite one.
just wait until I tell you too. It's about this dude. It's about an alien dude that destroys half the moon, then goes to Earth and becomes a teacher of a middle school class. And he's like a like octopus like tentacle creature.
Huh?
And he the whole thing is he's going to destroy the earth if his middle school class doesn't kill him by the time that they graduate. Uh-huh. Very
Right.
straightforward. Very straightforward plot. So for some reason, I don't even know why my siblings were watching it, and my mom was like kind of casually watching it in the background, and now she really likes it. And of all the anime, because she's always been like, "Oh, I don't really like anime." Like, of all the anime for her to enjoy, this like weird like tentacle monster assassination show is the one that she likes so much. Anyway, you never know what's gonna get you into anime. Oh,
Probably not that,
no, you don't
if
think
I'm
so?
being honest.
Yeah,
Don't think
it's really
so.
good. It is actually really good, and I've cried several times that anime, but you
Damn,
know,
that tentacle thing has brought out emotions.
it really does, honestly. It really does. So yeah, there you go.
Good for you, you know?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Just wait, you'll slowly get addicted to anime. I'll pray for you. Um All right, so today we're talking about Captain America: The First Avenger. And this is the 5th movie that we've watched. Yeah, 5th.
It is.
Um
Barreling through them. Look, we're making great
yeah.
progress. You
When
know?
did we start? I can't even remember I think we watched the first one in like March. So it's not too bad. Um let's see.
There's only 32 films total.
Is there really only 32?
Well, only 32, but yes.
Oh,
Obviously,
okay.
that's not including shows, but
Yeah.
exclusively films. There are 32. Well,
Yeah.
technically 31. Guardians 3 is going to be 32, but that's not out yet. But it will be by the time this goes live. So 32.
So I mean, we could be done by this time next year,
Oh yeah,
theoretically.
if the consistency keeps up easily, yeah.
Yeah. Guess we'll see.
Hmm.
Um First for this, spoiler free, just general thoughts. How did you feel about this film?
Um, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. It's never one that I'm really all that eager to go back to and watch again.
Mm.
Um, it's relatively sort of a standard affair going on here. There's nothing too special. Um, but that being said, what it is done pretty good, pretty well,
Mhm.
in my opinion. It's a compelling World War II story, obviously with some creative liberties, um, and I vibe with it a lot. I think I mean, we'll get into all of this, but I think the cast again, like we were saying with Thor the other week, is
Insane.
stacked. Once again speaks to the testament of the sort of even back at this point in the MCU, the draw that it had to bring this caliber of actor in, to do roles that are sometimes quite tame and other times quite exuberant and unique, in say Mr. Hugo Weaving's case. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think
Go
it's
on.
probably it has been consistently and will likely remain pretty low on my
Mm.
ranking. Um, but that doesn't, again, that never means that it's a bad film, because I think with maybe one or two exceptions, pretty much every Marvel film is at least fine to good,
Mhm.
which is an achievement. Like, because with the amount that they put out, you would expect there to be some real stinkers in there. But I don't. I personally believe that there isn't really. There's just different degrees of good.
No,
I'd
I
say
feel
this
like
is.
they got it all out with, like, the Incredible Hulk. They're like, "How can we get all of the terrible out?"
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Oh, no, please, no.
we have some
Oh,
bumpy roads
oh,
down the path.
I can't believe you're taking
Um,
me down this road.
but no, I think yeah, this is lower on the good scale, but it is still good. I think everybody does a really good job, and it's just a bit of fun, which again is to some a low bar,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, as someone who even back in the day when this first released, but even more so now, is obviously clearly very heavily invested in the continued story that they are telling. To get this kind of quite unique film compared to the others, it follows on from Thor in that, yes, a lot of the plot is relatively by the numbers, but they are still doing interesting settings or character dynamics or plot lines within the generic plot itself
Mm-hmm.
that are intriguing at the very least. So yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I would say I how do I feel about this? I thought it was good.
Mhm.
Question mark. Like good with a question mark. Like I feel like it was a lot of the times just like compilations of dudes running around shooting guns and
Yeah,
explosions. So it
yeah,
felt like very like almost Call of Duty-esque. Like
yeah.
just watching a compilation video of Call of Duty. But yeah, I don't know. Eh, other than that, like I think it was good. Like I don't know. Like it was fine. I don't know.
That's
Trying to
fine.
think if I had any like other like spoiler free general thoughts. Um yeah, spoiler free general thought. He does not look good. Like the CGI, like the proportions of his head to his body in the beginning of the film is like not it.
But come on, but I mean,
No, it's not it. I'm not giving them a pass on this.
back in the day, back in 2011, it was far less egregious.
Okay, I really want to see like the filming of this and see like see like the two actors like doing their parts separately and how it like morphed into
There is footage of
oh god.
the onset actor there.
Oh
Um,
god.
it is interesting, you know. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree that there is some stuff that doesn't necessarily hold up as well, but
Mhm.
um, at the very least, that was a significantly smaller portion of the film. Um, like we didn't spend super long with Steve before the transformation. That the bulk of the film is him beefed up.
Okay.
You know, so at least that your complaint against the CG there. At least it's not like a prolonged problem that is distracting for a
Yeah.
large portion of the film.
Yeah, that's fair. It's like you go from like weird graphics to just like buoys. So
Yeah, yeah.
did that running. I was so distracted. I was like, I don't even know what's happening right now. uh, okay, let's just go ahead and jump into just our regular stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to the soundtrack. I feel like it hit like the Americana pretty well.
Yes, it did.
Not like
Do I
super
know
like
every word to that Captain America sing a song thing? Yes, I do.
you actually. That's
I
crazy.
do. I do.
It's okay. I have a bunch of random songs that I know. It's not that one though. I definitely will not be memorizing that.
Not
Um
yet.
ever.
Never
Not
say never.
ever. Period. I'll
Pretty
memorize
catchy.
it. I'll memorize it if you watch Ted Lasso.
Yeah, you're never learning it. You're never learning
Yeah, okay. So yeah, soundtrack, meh. I think I liked Thor's soundtrack a little bit more, but it
it.
still had at least some tracks. Again, like they're starting to do better still with the soundtrack. So I think like shout out to that. And like also at least somewhat kind of following like the theme of what the movie was. So I think they did good there.
Yep.
But yeah, otherwise like meh. Let's see. Stanley had a stellar line this time as well. He's super funny.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he'd be taller. That was really good. Shout out to that. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do. I feel like the storyline. If you really think about the whole storyline, there's not much there,
No, no.
right? Like he becomes like this crazy soldier after he was like so weak and he like couldn't enlist. He enlists, becomes a crazy soldier, beats up a bunch of people, beats up the bad guy, and that's like essentially the plot.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just feel like even saying like to discuss the story of the movie, like there's nothing to
Well, I
really
mean,
discuss.
it's again playing into the setting very well, where it is like many other war films, where it is relatively surface level, where it
Mm.
is X good guy goes to fight Y bad guy, and Y bad guy has a big bad plan to use Z weapon to, you know, destroy the planet or kill everyone, or it's that in itself is the by the numbers portion.
Oh yeah, for sure.
um but there is clearly, like, as I said, things start to come together, um in that. I don't know whether you necessarily did you pick up on the fact that
Are you talking
obviously
about
the
the
thing
through
we
line
saw.
stuff?
Yes.
Yes. So through line stuff that I caught, one obviously like he's like the first Avenger, whatever,
Hmm.
right? So like we get like the beginning where he's like being found before it goes into the actual plot of the film, and then the ending where he's like in like quote unquote like modern day. Um,
Hmm.
I still think like in that modern day, I think he might be behind like all of the other films, if I had to guess. Like I think it'd be before. Other through lines, Odin, his random cube.
Oh yeah.
And then I kind of wish that we had watched this one together only because I knew that that was Tony Stark's dad before they even said who his like his name or anything. Like the moment he walked onto the stage, I was like, that is Tony Stark's dad. Like I
There we
like
go.
literally knew. I was so excited about it. I was like, oh, Sam would have been so proud of me. But yeah, no, so I'd say that's another through line. I actually really liked that character, but we'll talk about that later. I think that's like really all that I caught in terms of through lines. I'm trying to think if there's something else. Mm, I think that there's something. I'm assuming that this technology somehow affects, like the Iron Man stuff. Like I think that that cube is somehow related, but I'm not 100% confident in that. So yeah, there
I
you
mean,
go.
I'm neither going to confirm or deny that, um, but if we're really sort of connecting the dots here, we also obviously, and I say obviously because it's me saying it, but maybe not obviously, but maybe it will sort of jog memory. At the end of Thor,
Mhm.
we see Sam Jackson,
Mhm.
and the Doctor looking at this cube,
Oh, I don't remember that at all. Yeah. Hmm.
because that's when Loki was like possessing him, but Loki was
Oh,
in the
yeah.
mirror.
Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So again, like, it's very subtle, but they are building things up. Um, so we can obviously assume that um, that in Thor takes place after all of this, because they have the cube now, and the cube went down with Steve into the ice. So it's like there is that has some form of purpose, and Sam Jackson is in possession of it. What exactly it is and what it does, who knows? I do. So they're sort of suggesting that this cube, whatever it is, has some kind of mystical power that is connected to Asgard in some way, shape, or form. Like you say, sort of, mentions of Odin and whatnot. So they're setting stuff up. Some of it is incredibly subtle, and even stuff that isn't commented on, but is just sort of visually indicated. Like in this film, we don't see Sam Jackson with the cube at the end going, "I'm going to show this to this guy from Thor." It's just, if you have seen Thor and you saw that post-credit scene, you will be like, "Huh, there's that thing. I wonder why." Why it's doing that, and why there's some interesting stuff going on. Not a lot of it makes much sense at this point, I must admit, but that is by design. We aren't really supposed to know what is going on with that thing yet, other than the fact that it's incredibly powerful, and it makes Red Skull go bye-bye.
I really don't think he's dead, by the way. That's just my prediction. He just doesn't really seem like he died. Like, that was just too... It looked too much like the... It looked like the teleportation stuff, though, from Thor.
Oh, okay. But he was sort of like burning, right? It did look like it was like burning him.
Yeah, it did.
He was being absorbed into the cube or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, he could be dead, but also...
Yeah.
He could also not be. I don't know. I don't really trust anything at this point.
Doubt everything.
Yeah. Shout out to Elrond.
I mean, he went for it, hamming it up as a villain. He did it well.
It was fun seeing him be a villain.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it too often. Obviously the Matrix and stuff like that, but
I do not like the Matrix. I've only seen the first one.
That's disgraceful. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed his performance. I think everybody does a really good job.
Oh man, I love Stanley Tucci's character. I love Stanley Tucci, period. Like, period. But like, I saw like somebody describe him as like the most queer person that's straight. I was like,
you're not wrong.
That feels so right.
Yeah.
Like, he's the only person that's allowed to play a gay person that's actually straight.
Yeah.
I love Stanley Tucci.
He always does a good job, obviously. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is Tommy Lee Jones-ing, doing what he always does, but that is in and of itself at the very least serviceable. He does it very well, even if he typically only does do one thing. Yeah, and man of the hour, Chris Evans. I think he, speaking as a non-American, he does sort of seem to exude the American ideal, the dream of America. Is I can sort of sense that coming out of him, just from the sort of morals that he holds and
it's what they want America to be versus what it actually is.
Yeah, because America is very much Red Skull at the minute. But yeah, no, I think he does a good job. He's very clearly a strong leading man. And then, of course, Hayley Atwell. Good old Peggy Carter. Strong, sassy, independent woman. Doesn't take no messing.
I really did like her character.
Yeah, I think
very beautiful.
I think if we're speaking solely about all the films that have come thus far, she's probably the best female character.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because all the others, there are some, Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow is badass and stuff. She can get stuff done in Iron Man 2. Pepper, as we've talked about, is subservient to an extent to Tony, but she is still very proactive, and she's intelligent and she's witty. And And yeah, then obviously Peggy comes along, and Jane Foster in Thor is obviously a scientist, and she's very intelligent as well, but still very
Mhm.
sort of making goo goo eyes at Thor the whole film and not doing too much else.
Yeah.
But Peggy is just like a badass,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
across the board, which, love to see it. So yeah, and I think that as much as there is still the romantic thing between her and Steve, it's never it's that cliche like unspoken thing, where like you can tell almost from the moment that they meet, even when he's still tiny, that there is like a spark there, even though Steve is obviously so naive that he doesn't realize it. But the fact that it's never really touched upon, they don't kiss right until like the last minute, and then obviously that increases the sort of poignancy of him giving up a future with her to save everyone. Sort of not only does wonders for both her character in that moment and his character, but sort of reinforces the ideal that Steve has his priorities in a very specific order, and that the ideals that he seems to stand by, he cements them by the end of the film.
Mhm.
He says to Erskine, Stanley Tucci's character, that he doesn't want to kill anybody, he just doesn't like bullies.
Mhm.
And it's like, again, that's kind of reflected in the fact that, could he have feasibly maybe done something else with that plane rather than just deciding to crash it? Could he have safely landed it somewhere? Possibly, but he's not willing to take the risk just for his own gain.
Mhm.
He's far more concerned about protecting whoever it is that bomb would have impacted, um, than he is about sort of serving his own interests. So there's a lot of good character work going on here.
Mhm.
Again, the plot that they are in is very surface level, but good. Um, the only other character that is sort of really worth note is Bucky, his friend. Um,
Mhm.
Tragically dies, falls off the train.
Yeah. I
I've always
when I
hated
saw him
that shot.
falling, I was like, "Oh man, he's dead dead," you know?
Yeah, yeah. I never liked that shot. That's the one shot that I think still doesn't look good when he's falling, because he is that stereotypical thing where you can clearly tell he's just lying on the
Mhm.
floor going, "Whoa," which I've never liked. Which, I
Yes.
mean, that's a super nitpick thing, but yeah. Um,
I mean, they did so well with the other CGI that, that should have been easy.
yeah, but precisely. Yeah. Priorities clearly in the wrong place. Um, no, I liked his character, the little that he got to
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
Sort of acted as to be fair, kind of acted as like a ring in the ladder for Steve to climb up as his character
Oh, for
developed.
sure.
But at the very least, you had the stereotypical best friend thing, and then the best friend ends up dying, and that sort of reinforces the hero's drive to, get the job done. Um, and it's a shame that he's gone. I think that there is a dynamic there between him and Steve that would have been really interesting to explore. Um, but I would prefer for him to have died than like Peggy or someone.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, with the time skip at the end of the film, we aren't going to get Peggy in modern day, because she will have died by the time that he wakes up, from the ice.
You don't
But
think that she could be, like, super old?
what maybe she's like a vampire. Maybe she's just immortal.
No, I mean, like, how old would that she would be, like, 80 something?
Like
90
late
something?
80s, probably something like that.
Yeah. Hmm,
Yeah.
maybe.
So hey, maybe she's out there somewhere. Who knows?
Yeah.
I doubt it at this point in the story, but we can maybe believe that at some point she, and maybe you can just get a headcanon going where her and Steve did reunite, you know. He sought her out and he found her, and they got to have that dance that they spoke about.
Talk about cougar.
Whew, that's a weird dynamic, isn't it? Steve is like, wait, the last time I saw you felt like 5 minutes ago, and now you're like 70 years older than me, but I'm still attracted to you. Oh, this is confusing, but I like it. Yes, but I prefer it the way that it played out, where I think as much as Bucky was an interesting character and like a good companion to Steve, I'd have preferred for him to die and sort of do the sacrifice play on the train than a Peggy or someone.
Yeah.
And none of the
part of
like
the Avengers
supporting
that way
squad
either.
characters felt like fleshed out or developed enough where their sacrifice would have been worthwhile in that moment. So it kind of had to be Bucky, unfortunately, but you know, that's the way of the world. That's how things go.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like going back to that kiss scene, that was like one of my favorite throwaway lines where he's like, I'm not gonna kiss
I'm not
you.
kissing you.
That made me laugh really hard. But in terms of like characters, let's see. You know, I really do think I like what they did with the characters. Like you were saying, like apart from like the whole overall story being kind of so bland, I think is a good word for it.
Played out. It's
Yeah.
overexposed. I think the story itself functions fine. It's just that we've seen so many iterations of it in so many different formats that it's just like you can basically tell what the plot of the film is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like I almost feel like they still could have done, because the thing is you can still follow tropes and do it well. So they could have done this differently. And I think had it gone a little bit better. But it's fine. Not a big deal. The only thing I would add, I think I just like echo a lot of your sentiments about like the characters and stuff. Like I really liked Peggy. It does not pass the Bechdel test, but I think that they had a strong enough character that it's fine. Man, she got that solid punch in too, which was awesome.
Hell yeah.
I am just generally confused why she's there. In terms of plot, like why is her character in America in charge of American soldier? Like I don't know, like that whole, like I didn't understand that, but that's pretty minor plot point. I was just like suspense of disbelief. Whatever, it's fine. I don't really care that much.
I think there is like a throwaway line where she was brought over to help train up the thing, and that she is in some way connected to the super soldier program. But yeah, I mean, I can't recall exactly what the justification is, but I know that there is something there. It's just that they don't really highlight it, which is, you know, a fair issue to take with the film. I think, again, minor, but still worth pointing out regardless.
Yeah, it was just something that was just like it kind of like, I don't want to say like bugged me, but just was like weird. The only other thing that I really wanted to point out is like Howard Stark's character. I really, really enjoyed him in this film. I know he wasn't in the film much, but man, I really did enjoy his character. I thought he was played so well. Like you could just tell like how much like Tony is like him.
You can tell where Tony gets it from, can't
Yeah,
you?
I know. I loved it so much because it really did feel like his dad. You know what I mean? It wasn't like this like how do I phrase it? Like it didn't feel like, oh, like how did Tony, like how, why is he the way he is kind of thing. Like it was very much like, look, this is his dad. Like even though he didn't spend a lot of time around his dad, like he still is very much like his dad, which is just, I
Yeah,
enjoyed that so much.
It's the thing of, you know, like you keep saying, the suspension of disbelief. The portrayal is done so well that you don't have to suspend disbelief, because sometimes you get that where you'll be introduced to the parent of a character and you'll just be like, I have to accept that this person is playing the parent of this character. Whereas, like you say, Dominic Cooper plays the role so well, and to be fair, is written very well, where you don't have to believe it. You just can. You can tell that he's. They don't have to keep saying, as much as it is said a lot. They don't have to keep going. Stark, 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 wink, wink, Stark, to get across to you that he's Tony's dad, because it's just like you're seeing an alternate version of Tony in a different era, which is...
I mean, that's exactly why I knew. Like, the moment he walked on, I was like, that is Tony Stark's dad. Like, he didn't even have to open his mouth. Like, the moment he walks on, I like knew, because like that character is just so well done. And I genuinely, I don't think I've ever seen this actor before, and I really like him.
Wow.
Yeah, I was looking through his IMDb, and I don't think I've seen him.
You haven't seen Mamma Mia?
I have, but it was like when it originally came out.
Fair.
And I was more paying attention to my aunt being embarrassed. Okay, my aunt is okay. I love my aunt, but she has like this particular way that she sings. And the entire time we were in the theater, she was singing this particular way.
I mean, just singing in general, but oh dear.
It was a very unique experience.
That's
We'll
one way
say
of putting
that.
it, I'm sure.
So, yeah. So I don't even there's no way I would have remembered him in that film.
That's fair.
So I'll have to go watch it again, I guess. But yeah, no, I really liked him. I thought he did like incredibly well. I'm sure it was like a lot of like the writing and stuff, but I think that he like played the role really well as well. So yeah, shout out to that. I would say that's like probably all I really wanted to say about characters. Besides, like, I would say, like, my shock at, like, how well Stanley Tucci did in this role, like, it felt so weird that that was Stanley Tucci. I don't know, like, I'm used to him playing, like, a million other kinds of roles, but this one was, like, it felt almost weird to me, but he did really good still. It was just like, "Is that Stanley Tucci?" Like, I had to, like, look it up because it was just, like, it didn't feel like him, you know? So, yeah, I'd say that's it for characters and stuff. In terms of, like, so we covered story, we covered characters, and through line. So last thing left would be like themes. Is there any like themes that you want to shout out here? I would say for me that I think that like this is probably the first film in this like Marvel series that we've seen that doesn't follow the hero's journey. And I know that all of them kind of stray from it a little bit, but I feel like this one I guess Iron Man 2 doesn't exactly either, but it feels like a lot of them kind of follow that like hero's journey, and this one wasn't like you don't get like the refusal of the call and stuff like that. Like he just was like really wanting to be a hero. I guess.
Yeah,
Not he
I suppose.
he wanted to help, I should say. I don't know.
I suppose. I mean, I it's interesting because whilst not necessarily immediately noticeable, you do see in these earlier films a repetition in themes and sort of how certain beats of the narrative play out. Again, this is kind of diverging away from the themes for a minute, but like,
No, you're good.
You know, in Iron Man, you have someone who is very, self-centric and full of their own, hoisted by their own petard and all that stuff. And then he is given a dose of reality, and he is helped by someone who is trying to, make up for their sins. The old guy in the cave changes his perspective on things, gets him back in the game. He becomes a hero. you see that replicated here, not necessarily one to one, but you see someone who is very much not capable of being a stereotypical hero. Obviously, he is
Mhm.
very moralistic and selfless in the beginning, but he is very incapable of actually sort of acting on those morals. And then he obviously meets Erskine, Stanley Tucci's character, who again is also trying to make amends for bad things that he did in the past, and breeds this hero.
Mhm.
And even to an extent, less of the case in Thor, but like again, someone who is very self-centered, gets a shock of reality, earns his way to being a hero again. So you see that a lot, but I think the inversion within this film is refreshing, where it's not just it's this hunky guy who wants to be a hero, but then something happens and it changes his perspective and he chooses to still be a hero, but for different reasons. It's that he is objectively a better person than any of the other heroes that we've seen thus far from the offset. But it's rather than a removal of power or security or safety, it is bestowing that strength upon him that turns him into this ultimate, form, this peak pinnacle of a hero.
Mhm.
And you see that reflected when Stephen and Erskine are talking, and he says like how the serum amplifies whatever is inside you. So good becomes great, bad becomes worse.
Mhm.
And I think that getting back to themes is interesting, not only in terms of just this film, but in terms of the MCU as a whole up until this point, where you kind of start seeing connections there of power corrupting, um, or the mishandling of power, and that it needs to be in the right hands for it to be effective. I'm not really sure exactly where the end of this point that I'm making is going, but it's the sentiment more so than anything that
Mhm.
is very by the books for most superhero stories. But I think in terms of a translation to the medium of film, um, this Captain America, at the very least, like you said, does diverge away from that at least a little bit,
Mhm.
or or plays with the structure of it, which offsets certain expectations from the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, again, like I agree with you at the end of the day that there isn't much thematically going on, but I think that there are interesting parallels that can be drawn,
Mm.
um, that function as foils for the characters within this film, but also just the themes and ideas behind the MCU as a whole in terms of setting up what the heroes of this universe can be and what they need to be, as opposed to what they are.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's just it's interesting. Like I did enjoy this film, but like we said, like there's just not much going on, which is interesting. But that's okay. Um, the one thing I did want to bring up, just because I thought it was, have you seen Legend of Korra? What is that? Yes, no. Like,
What do you think?
I'm gonna guess no, but I don't know.
No,
That's
I have
upsetting.
not.
You should have. But anyway, so there's a character for those of you who've seen Legend of Korra and seen this film. There's a character named Bolin, um, and he kind of goes through this really interesting. It was so weird to me to see like the almost like parallels between Captain America and Bolin, just at the beginning of the film, like when he's like going around and like doing those performances or whatever. Um, Bolin very much does the same thing where he starts working with this famous guy and like he's part of TM Avatar, so he's like this hero, but he wants to be like a movie star. They call it movers, but he wants to be like a mover star or whatever. And he's like, I don't know, like it was really interesting to kind of like watch like the parallels between like what happens with Bolin and what happens with Captain America over like those performances and stuff like that. That was it. But some people don't like good TV, so you know.
Yeah, sorry. I have
I
horrific
can't.
taste.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is genuinely one of my favorite things, like on this planet. Like,
Hey, good for you. I'm glad.
I
I'm
can't believe
glad.
you. I can't believe you. Anyways, is there anything else you wanted to say about the film?
Yeah, I mean the last thing I'll say is like I just looked it up, the quote because I didn't want to misquote it, but Erskine says to Steve when they're talking about the serum the night before the procedure, he says, and I quote, "This is why you were chosen, because the strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion." Um, and in terms of not only theme but through line, I think that quote highlights, and the film does a good job of demonstrating not only the kind of person Steve Rogers is just at a base level, but also the fact that out of all of the heroes we've seen thus far, again, I'm kind of reiterating my point, but that he is the most worthy of this power. And also, it, as the title of the film implies, the first Avenger, not only is that because this is technically the furthest back in the timeline that we have been thus far, so technically he is the first Avenger, but also I think that title has a bit more significance because that quote especially demonstrates why I think Steve Rogers is a natural fit to lead the Avengers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the first because he came around first, technically time wise, but also he is the first real hero that not only the world saw up until that point within the universe, but also the first real hero that
Mm-hmm.
we've seen in these films thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Um, Last thing here is ranking.
Mm.
Where does this go on your list?
I'm starting to lose track.
So we have Thor, Iron Man 2, and The Incredible Hulk.
This goes between the two Iron Mans, so above Iron Man 2, but just below the first Iron Man for me.
Okay. Um, Alrighty. It is added in on record for you. I would say for me, hmm, I feel like I'm having a hard time deciding because I think depending on like which element like you really like attached to, the biggest problem with Captain America is again like there's not a lot of plot there. So like as much as I enjoyed it, like it just doesn't feel like there's much there.
Mm-hmm.
Um I would say probably below Iron
Go
Man
with your
2.
heart.
Yeah, I'm trying, well, it's just hard because like I feel like yeah, I'll put it there for now, subject to change, but I'll think about it more. But I think I'm going to put it number 4 on my list.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. I do enjoy that things are starting to come together and stuff like that. But
Well, boy, do we have a doozy next time.
I know I watched the trailer for it in the
Yeah,
post-credit scene.
that happens very occasionally. It was a different time back then.
Yeah, that cracked me up.
As you can tell by the editing of that trailer, it is
It
very,
was a classic trailer.
yeah,
Yeah.
very 2010.
Mhm.
But yeah, Avengers coming up next. We are seeing things begin to come together properly.
Ooh. I guess we'll see. Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody so much for hanging out with us today. And a special shout out to our current patrons. So we have Bucky Blue, Hopple, Alpaca Tom, Amon, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Brianna's wife, Nikolai at Night, Cypher Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, The Snack Network, David Hotright, Dave Harp, and the Xbox Expansion Pass. Thank you guys all so much for the support, including myself. Where can people find you, Sam?
People can find me on Twitter at Sam Heaney. That is Heaney.
Beautiful. You can find me at Fabulous Brianna, Fabulist Breanna, and you can find on Twitter. You can find us at Save Game Media. Everywhere else, it's Save the Game Media. So come check us out. And thanks for hanging out today. We'll see you in 2 weeks.